Welcome to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
And we're getting real, getting down to the nitty gritty of the stories that make a difference in your life and to tell you the story behind the story when the rest of the media doesn't finish the sentence.
Yes, absolutely. And I think here in Savannah, we hear a lot of, interesting things about Raphael Warnock and some interesting things about Herschel Walker.
Mm-hmm. And of course, in politics, it gets awfully dirty, especially when we're going down the home stretch here and we're only a few days out. Early voting starts very soon.
Yes, it does. And we are waiting for those October surprises to be upon us, Bill.
For sure. Here it is. You remember we're a third of the way through October already? Here it is, the 10th.
Oh, man, I can't even believe it.
Yeah, for sure. They just finished up last week, and I'd like to get an after-action report from anybody out there on how things went with pre-K school week for the Savannah-Chatham County Public Schools, and a new program that we have for pre-K students for 3-year-olds called the Little Acorn Academy.
I believe that they used the word equity somewhere in there, which is a red flag to me, Bill.
Yeah, so they say they are able to do this because of a grant that they received from the Equity and Education program from Georgia Power. Georgia Power, shame on you.
Why is Georgia Power getting involved in this stuff, Bill? I would like to know that. I would like to talk to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'd like to know what equity in education means to begin with. Everybody should get the same education, okay?
Yes, and that does not mean you get the same outcome because there are a lot of factors that go into education, Bill, and that's what you also put into it, correct?
Yeah, that is correct, but district officials say that they have this option for students now that is a pre-K program called the Little Acorn Program. This is for 3-year-old pre-K students, and it takes them into the classroom here in Savannah. It's at Gould Elementary School. I had 22 students in there last week. Would like to find out. And so that gives them a chance to start learning how to spell and what the classroom atmosphere is like and getting them ready when they go into elementary school in a couple of years or 3 years.
I think that we should have people in there auditing what's going on and being able to report out on this stuff because, I mean, not to say that I don't trust people, but I don't, Bill. I think that the younger they get our kids, the worse it's going to be. We see already what they're doing in a lot of these kindergarten, first grade classes. What are they teaching these, poor 3-year-olds? And, I just don't trust that they're in good hands all the time. I think that we should, hope for the best, but also inspect what we expect.
I believe it's more of not an inclusion program, but a diversity program of some sort, that it is an indoctrination program of all sorts.
Sounds like there might be some CRT in there and maybe some pronoun usage.
Mm-hmm. So they said 22 students, and they said it's becoming so successful, they're doing it on a lottery basis. So if you want your kid enrolled, you have to sign up, and then they draw the name out of a hat or something. I don't know exactly how it works, computer drawn or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they say they want to expand it to 2 more classes next year. It's been so successful this year. Well, how do we know it's been so successful when it just started?
Exactly. I want to see, okay, where did these, children start at and where do they end at during this program period? And how long is this program period? Is it, a 1 semester thing, which is half a year, or are we talking a full year here? What does that look like? And what expectations should people have when enrolling their kids in these programs? I think that that's a big thing that they miss when they report on these things is, what are they actually doing and what are the outcomes they're expecting?
They're making it a big push, Brittany, to say that it helps with the burdens of daycare. So people don't have to put their kids in daycare. They could actually have them in our wonderful public schools in no time.
I do think that there needs to be some help for families with this daycare. I mean, daycare is very expensive.
Oh, yeah.
And I do think that I think I say this a lot, Bill, but I think that there are solutions to problems. I just don't think that we go about it the right way. And for me, putting another government program out there for children, which we're already fighting the public schools on a lot of things already, should we really be enrolling kids in another government program when the ones that we currently have are not working for us?
Well, they said that they are. They said the Little Acorn Academy is goes through the same lottery process that the 4-year-old pre-K students go through, and they're trying to work out the logistics now for next year's classes. So But they're talking about the students learning their ABCs, learning their colors, learning how to spell. All of which I think is fine.
Yep, I think that's great.
We
Great
don't know
stuff
what
to learn.
As far as the equity goes, we don't know what the breakdown was on those 22 students. How many were black? How many were white? How many were Hispanic? How many were transgender? I mean, the whole bit.
Exactly. Well, and I think anytime you hear the word equity, I think we should all kind of raise a red flag and say,
Yeah,
okay, we need to
the
investigate
antenna
this.
should go up.
Yes, we should investigate this. We should look into it and see what are they actually teaching, what are they actually doing. And, there's a lot of key words out there, and this is one of them, Bill.
Sure is. So be aware. Meanwhile,
I think we want to look at some maybe video from Tim Scott, who we all love.
yes, Tim Scott, great senator from South Carolina. He's running for re-election, but he is also was on the campaign trail here last week. He was over in the Low Country area in South Carolina campaigning for himself, but also had some great words to say about Herschel Walker running on this side of the river.
WSAV is your local election headquarters. South Carolina Senator Tim Scott made a stop in the Low Country today. Hundreds showed up to hear his stance on the economy, abortion, and more. News 3's Andrew Davis was there. He is joining us live with his message for voters.
Well, the Democratic Party has called for Tim Scott's opponent to resign from the race. That's following controversial comments regarding white voters that she made last month. And that is the senator feeling a lot more comfortable with his chances in November. Now, he came to Bluffton today to drum up support not just for his own campaign, but for the entire party in the Palmetto State.
I think this election is the most consequential midterm election in my lifetime.
And that's why Tim Scott came to Oyster Factory Park in Bluffton Monday to try and lock down his voters and make sure that Republicans are in lockstep with the rest of the ticket.
A good economy makes a lot of things possible, and we've lost that good economy because of the overspending and outrageous decisions of the Biden administration.
About 500 people were on hand to hear Scott talk about the economy, the need for change, and how crucial Republican votes will be in November. Congresswoman Nancy Mace says the senator's message echoes the party line.
But we also want to focus on candidates that can win and bring people together. Senator Tim Scott's speech today was about bringing people together, and that's what I think folks really want to hear in November, too.
But many people wanted to hear his stance on fellow Senator Lindsey Graham's nationwide abortion ban bill, a stance that he was seemingly not willing to take after not one but two questions from reporters.
I understood his question as well as yours. I just simply say, I'm going to talk about what the voters are talking about. The number one issue the voters are talking about is the overall health of the economy. The number two issue the voters are talking about is inflation. The number three issue is gas prices. And number four is crime. I'm going to continue to focus on what they tell me to focus on.
And if voters tell Scott to focus on a presidential run in 2024? President in 24?
Senate
Thank you guys so much for your time. Thank you guys.
Now, Senator Scott's opponent, Crystal Matthews, isn't giving up despite calls to quit that race. According to a press release, Matthews calls the Republican incumbent MAGA's favorite black legislator. She says issues like health care and education have been ignored by Republicans, and she does plan to remain a politician for the people. That's a term coined by fellow South Carolina Democrats. Live in the Low Country newsroom, Andrew Davis, WSAV News 3, on your side.
Okay, you saw that was from WSAV. They're on your side,
Yes, well, and Tim Scott is definitely on our side, Bill.
Yes, he is.
I do like Tim Scott a lot. I think that he is probably one of the most articulate when it comes to a lot of issues, and he's able to explain it in a way that people that don't have a law degree can understand, which I appreciate, because I don't have one.
He is the true American success story, and that's what this country is all about. Here's a kid, a single mom, growing up in poverty and becomes a United States senator. Pretty cool in a country that's so racist.
Yeah, I just don't believe it, Bill. I think, you see a lot of these senators, and oh my gosh, the Latinos that are running are just amazing in this country.
Yeah.
And, I think they have done a great job of explaining to people what the real issues are. You can see that, they try to bring abortion up. Abortion is not an issue that is top of mind for a lot of people right now because they are struggling to
feed the family.
Yeah, buy gas, buy food, buy groceries, be safe when they go out in public. I think that that's a big thing that we haven't seen in a lot of years, Bill, on the ticket. But crime in this country is out of control. And we haven't really had that on the ballot for a really long time until the last couple of years.
And for the Democrats, you own it. This is your problem that you foisted on this country. And your so-called equity programs or diversity or whatever the hell you want to call it, it is pathetic what you're doing to destroy America. And if you think defunding the police is a good idea, all you have to do is look around at the statistics. And it's just amazing to me, Brittany, how these people double down on stupid when you confront them with the facts and they say nothing about it. There was a great story that Jesse Waters had on last week on the Fox News channel. Bill Malugin, who's been doing these great reports from down on the border, was in Washington, and as the senators and congressmen people were coming back to work last week, he's trying to ask them about legislation that's coming up or anything of that nature. They refused to talk with him. They could have said, go away, kid, you bother me, stick it where the sun don't shine, anything of that nature. They didn't even acknowledge him. He talked. Who's the black chairman of the January 6th
Presley.
committee? Yeah, he stops him and he said,
Ayanna Presley or
he
something
looks
like
at Malugin just with indignance. He says, "Don't you know I'm about to make a speech?" He said, "I'm just asking you a question. You can ask you that. Just answer a quick question." He wouldn't do it, and then and then Mayorkas shows up around the corner. The guy who says that everything's under control at the border. The guy's in charge of our Homeland Security. And he said, "Can we talk with you a minute?" "No, I don't have time right now." At least he answered him.
Yes, and I will say that it's interesting when you see all around the country these debates not happening, and they're not willing to stand on what they're promoting, and for them winning issues, above Republicans due to the polling is abortion and democracy. However, I think that people should start correcting people.
The precious democracy.
We're not a democracy.
No, we're not.
We are a representative republic, and that is vastly different than a democracy. In a democracy, the majority basically can rule the minority. And in this country, we have put barriers in place to avoid that from happening, because we should all be able to live the lives that we want to live without someone dictating what that looks like.
One of those evil white co-founders of this country, one of the founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin, often described a democracy as two wolves and a sheep arguing over what's for dinner.
It doesn't end well, Bill. It does not end well.
Not for the sheep.
No.
That's for sure.
No.
And that's what a democracy is. It's supposed to be one man, one vote. No. This is a representative republic. That's something that Brent Bozell pointed out last week when he was here from Media Research Center, the founder of the Media Research Center, when he was at the great event that we had out at the landings.
Yeah, and it's a valid point, and I think people, they repeat democracy so much that I think people literally think that we are a democracy. And I think that needs to be corrected. I think we need to start correcting the language, because that's how they're able to manipulate people, Bill. And language is really important. And they have dictated, look at recession. All of a sudden, recession has been redefined, Bill, and we're no longer in a recession, which is a total lie. People are waking up to this stuff. We are in a recession, if you haven't heard.
Notice that the Pledge of Allegiance, it says, "To the Republic for which it stands," not to the democracy for which it stands.
Correct. And I had a conversation with someone not too long ago about how they wish they lived in Switzerland because it's so wonderful. And I said,
what's keeping them here?
Well, I did speak with this person. I said, in Switzerland, they are now dictating that you cannot have your thermostat above 68 degrees. And if you do, or someone who does, you should report that person. So yes, Switzerland is fantastic.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
I think also they've decided you can, or is it? I may be mistaken. I think maybe it's in Holland. You can kill your kid up to the age of 2. I think in Switzerland it's the same way. If you decide you don't like the kid, go ahead and get rid of it.
Yeah, these are not, I don't agree with a lot of the policies in these countries. And we're also seeing the far right, in quotation marks, win a lot of these elections right now because people see the consequences of what they've done.
And there's a good reason for that. And we're going to talk more about it coming up next on Get Real America.
have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay, there is a point beyond which they must not advance.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
We choose to go to the moon.
You and I know and do not believe that life is so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery.
As your governor, I promise you, whatever challenges come our way, I will always lead the California way.
You are
literally insane. I say that's the California way.
You guys are really awesome. Thank you so much.
Based on compassion,
I mean, if we're going to be realistic, they'd pay you to be homeless here.
common sense. Clean and sober is one of the biggest damn mistakes this country's ever made. We all need to self-medicate periodically. Telling the truth. Telling the truth. Treasuring our diversity.
To hit my...
Telling the truth. Following science. Protecting our planet.
Love like yours will surely come my way. Hey, hey, hey.
Gavin Newsom, courage through crisis.
The last 3 years, Georgia's been tested in ways we could never imagine. And it fell to Governor Brian Kemp to successfully lead us during these troubling times. Georgia is still first in the nation for business. Our unemployment rate is the lowest in state history. Today, people come to Georgia to succeed, start a business, raise a family. Kemp has always backed the blue, stopping the radical left from defunding local police. He passed a tough new election integrity bill that, as the governor likes to say, made it easy to vote and hard to cheat. And while some during COVID-19 shut down their economy, Kemp kept our schools and businesses open while keeping Georgians safe. A long list of accomplishments. Fighting human trafficking, increasing teacher pay, greater access to quality health care. A governor who works for Georgians. All of us. Governor Brian Kemp.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Glad to have you with us here as we crank up another week, about a third of the way through October.
So crazy, Bill. We are getting really close to the elections, which is a little scary.
Yeah. Early voting about to start, and we're not in favor of early voting here. We think you ought to vote on Election Day, and that's about it. Maybe you can have a day or even a Saturday voting day. But other than that, and we've advocated it before, make the voting day a national holiday.
Absolutely, Bill. I'm all about celebrating this country and our right to vote, which I think is amazing. So have a barbecue, get your friends out, take 10 friends with you to the polls, rent a party bus, make it fun.
And start teaching civics in school again and the importance of voting. We used to have the civics lessons. They brought in voting machines for us at school, showed us how to do it. This is the old days, and they had the machine where you got behind a curtain and you did it manually, clicking on the person that you wanted to vote for, and then the vote was registered. And it's amazing, before computers or anything like that, we knew who won the election usually that very night.
It's amazing
long before midnight.
It's amazing how computers have not helped us. They have actually made the election process much more painful.
Yeah, they sure have, and much more questionable. And that is another hideous part of this, that if you lose your faith in the voting process, how dangerous is that to our precious democracy?
Our representative republic. I would like to correct you, Bill.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, and I would also like to say it discourages people from voting, and I want to tell people the only way to win is to show up, and we have to show up in mass numbers on November 8th. I also want to just touch on the fact that we do have a very important debate going on this Friday, October 14th, between Herschel Walker and Raphael Warnock.
So with early voting already underway, we have the first debate, and probably the only debate that Herschel and Warnock are going to have. And they've conveniently made it on a Friday night, high school football night, and usually not the night where most people are watching television, and they usually don't. If they are, they're not watching debates. So the Democrats strike again. It took Warnock a long time to even agree to this. So we weren't even sure it was going to take place. Have you heard who's going to be the moderator, or they didn't ask us to do it?
Yeah, I haven't heard. Who is that, Bill?
I don't know. Have your people get back to our people.
Yeah, I did hear from the Herschel campaign that they were having a difficult time getting information. They said it was very piecemeal coming into them, and I think that their campaign is only getting 5 tickets to this event, which is kind of crazy.
Do you know where it's going to be? I know it's going to be covered. It's going to be carried statewide, and I don't know if WTOC is carrying it. We know SAV, WJCL.
It will be at the district, which is at Plant Riverside. I do know that that's the location.
Oh, okay.
So. Very exciting stuff going on.
Yeah, Plant Riverside down on River Street in Savannah. And in case you're not familiar.
Yes, and you know who I love, John Kennedy. He's a senator from Louisiana. Probably one of the funniest, dry sense of humor that I've seen, and he is who he is. You can't get around it.
And Raging Cajun, and he tells it like it is. If you don't like it, then that's just too bad. I love one of his campaign ads when he said, please vote for me. He said, I won't let you down. I'd rather drink weed killer.
He's got a lot of good one-liners, and he has a new campaign ad out that I think we should play now.
Well, let's take a look at it.
Violent crime is surging in Louisiana. Woke leaders blame the police. I blame the criminals. A mom should not have to look over her shoulder when she's pumping gas. I voted against the early release of violent criminals, and I opposed defunding the police. Look, if you hate cops just because they're cops, the next time you get in trouble, call a crackhead. I'm John Kennedy, and I approve this message.
I wonder how many calls will be made to crackheads.
And the more the things change, the more they stay the same, because they were when I was coming along in college, they had the police referred to as pigs by the hippie crowd and by the left-wing loons. These people running around, especially out at Cal Jerkley, hair down to their butts, screaming, running, and familiar with every 4-letter word except soap, and screaming about how they get rid of the police. And so it's nothing new as far as the left trying to get rid. And now those people who were doing that are now professors.
It's so exciting, Bill.
Or running the media in this country. Maybe even some of them in the pulpit, because they're trying to take over our churches as well. They're doing a good job of it.
Absolutely. And the thing I love is that John Kennedy, he is sticking to one issue in this ad, which I like.
Exactly.
And New Orleans, unfortunately, they are calling on civilians to actually help with a lot of the crime and stuff going on in their
The French Quarter
city.
has hired a civilian, trying to hire a civilian police force. I don't know if they have or not, but I was just amazed. Raymond Arroyo is one of my favorites from Fox News, and he lives down there. And he was saying that they were 900 police officers short in the New Orleans Police Department. I didn't know that. I know it's a big city, but I didn't know there were 900 cops on the force, much less they were 900 short. Apparently, they have over 2,000 when they were at their peak. But who the heck wants to be a policeman now?
Especially in a city like New Orleans. I mean, the crime is out of control. They, have had a Democrat mayor that definitely didn't help during COVID and really did not back their police department, which is a huge issue. You have to have the support of the local government in order to be successful as a police officer. And if you don't have that support, why would you want to be a police officer in New Orleans?
How would you? And I don't know if you are familiar with this witch, but she was flying around on Broom 1, going off to these foreign countries and at the taxpayers' expense. And when she was confronted with it, she said, "Well, I'm doing this for New Orleans. I'm going off to support New Orleans and to get bring in businesses and things." Well, what business wants to come into your town if you don't have police protection? And who wants to sign up? We've started here in Savannah. We're starting our police officers. We've just come up with a new salary cap for them, or not salary cap, but a starting salary of $50,000. But who wants to be a cop, even in a community like Savannah that actually supports its police?
We do. However, we do have a DA here that's not prosecuting, which is very frustrating, and is allowing people to be out on bail very quickly, and they're not prosecuted for the crimes that they're committing, including a lot of the violent ones, and that's dangerous for any population. We did make the list. I believe we were number 35 on some of the most dangerous cities for crime per capita, and I mean that's very sad because Savannah is beautiful, and there's no excuse for why we are where we're at.
That didn't used to happen, and it is just unbelievable because we have over 10 million visitors a year come here, and they must come here for a reason, and it's because of the beauty of this city. But if word starts getting around that the crime is going up, that's going to decrease, and boy, does that crush the economy, because when you have an economy that is built around hospitality, that's a hit.
It absolutely is. And I went to the gun show a few weeks ago, Bill, and the amount of women buying, mace and tasers and stun guns and things like that, it was unbelievable. And there was a female that she's from North Georgia. She was wonderful, but she was talking to me about, the importance of women being able to protect themselves because it's not getting better, it's getting worse. And this woman was packing some heat. I was like a little intimidated by her. I'm not going to lie. She had like 3 guns on a holster on her person.
Oh, good for her.
Yes. And she actually taught shooting classes for women because the way that women carry and the way that men carry is so different because we wear different clothing. We obviously have a different makeup to access our gun and things like that. So very interesting to talk to these women, but it's definitely an issue. And you're seeing more and more women feel like they need to protect themselves, especially after that tragic event that happened in Memphis just a month ago. So I don't know. It's getting dangerous out there, Bill.
Sure is. You're referring to the jogger?
Yes, I
in
am.
Memphis that was, she was
a teacher.
Heiress to a billionaire fortune. And she was out and very popular. She was a kindergarten teacher.
Yep, she was.
And she was a mother of 2 young children, and she's out jogging 4 o'clock one morning, getting ready for a marathon, and all of a sudden she is kidnapped. And they actually have the kidnapping on video, and kidnapped by a guy who what?
He had already been prosecuted for the same thing
20 years
earlier.
ago.
Yep.
20 years ago, kidnapping and a prominent attorney. Fortunately for the attorney, in that case, the attorney escaped.
Mm-hmm. He's very lucky.
This woman didn't. And it's just disgusting that we just continue to let this go on, and we get these excuses. And what I am hearing from I'm sorry, Democrats, where is your voice?
Well, what happened to protecting women?
When it comes to this, and now, as the old saying, the Alinsky rules for radicals, where you accuse the other side of what you're doing. Now I see Democrats, because they're scared of what the polls are showing, how the GOP is actually gaining, and looks like the red wave is actually going to take place. They're running all these ads about how they're in favor of law enforcement. Well, you got Dick Turban from up there in Illinois, this left-wing cretin, saying that we're in favor of funding the police, and they show that stupid clip where the faux president is sitting there saying, not defund the police, fund the police. Yo, please. All right. This is Get Real America coming back.
We are going to continue to get real, and I believe that we have an interesting tackle that went down last week, which is going to be fun to look at.
Yeah. So.
Oh no, he got a debate. He may not even show up for that one. He made every excuse not to show up. He was making every excuse not to show up. I begged him until I chased him down, and then he decided he was going to show up on October the 14th. So all you be there, October the 14th. He's going to show up, and we're going to debate, and we're going to see whether he wants to debate if he shows up. I told him to put his big man pants on, and I think he put them on and finally decided to come. So I'm happy that he's going to come in his hometown here in Savannah. So it's going to be a good debate.
Sir, you have not agreed to do debates before this one. So you mentioned Senator Warnock, you had to get him to do this one, but he couldn't get you to do other ones.
That's not true. That is totally not true. Wait, you got to answer the question. Don't tell a lie. Don't tell a lie. No, I know the question you're going to ask. I haven't agreed to do his debate because his debate wasn't a fair debate, and it's not good to do a fair debate. A fair debate is to do it in front of the voters. And I've agreed. I said, if Senator Warnock come to Savannah, Georgia, in front of people and do the debate, show up, do one. Don't be talking about something else. You haven't even shown up yet. Make sure you show up at this one. If you bring him to this debate, drive him here, do the debate, then we can talk about other stuff. Right now, I don't think he's showing up because he don't want to talk about the issues. You know that.
So what kind of preparation are you doing?
Talking to the voters, talking to you. You told me I got to prepare, so I'm preparing. I'm this country boy. You know, I'm not that smart. And he's that preacher. He's a smart man, wear these nice suits. So he's going to show up and embarrass me at the debate October the 14th. And I'm just waiting. You know, I'll show up, and I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my best.
I do absolutely agree that it's racist. It is a redux of Jim Crow in a suit and tie.
America has a long history of systemic racism.
You ain't black.
America has a pre-existing condition. It's called racism.
Senator Warnock believes America is a bad country full of racist people. I believe we're a great country full of generous people. Warnock wants to divide us. I want to bring us together. I'm Herschel Walker. I approve this message.
Let me tell you guys something. You know, every time I go out to speak, everybody want a sound bite. I'm going to give you a sound bite really quick. I'm sick and tired of people putting this country down. They want to ask me why I'm running. Let's be real. I'm sick and tired. You look at the economy, you look at the gas prices. You can't buy a grocery now. It's time for us to wake up. It's time for me to get out and fight. Because I'm going to tell you, I love to win. I said, put me in the game, coach. I'm ready to play. If you ever seen me play, I can play. Have you ever seen me fight, I can fight. No matter how hard they come, the harder I can fight. I'm sick and tired of this. Tell your friends to get out and vote. I'm not here to be a politician. I'm here to be a warrior. Protect this country, protect our citizens, and protect our kids. No weapon formed against me shall ever prosper. Boom! That's it, baby!
Welcome back to Get Real America.
Well, we're getting real, getting you down to the real stories. Of course, as you know, a couple of weeks ago, Hurricane Ian came by, and he was not Mr. Nice Guy. Devastation in Florida, and I'm sure the pictures do not do it justice. And the Democrats and the media, but I repeat myself, can't help themselves in turning this into a political campaign. Because Governor DeSantis does not worship at the altar of climate change, that somehow that Florida deserved this.
It's disgusting the way that they paint these things and these events. They're tragic events. We should treat them as such. They should not be politicized. I think that this is one thing that we can really learn from and also ask questions about, Bill. Why do they continue to politicize these things? And it's because that's the only way they can win and indoctrinate people. It is so scary that what they're trying to do, and these storms are scary. We were scared here in Savannah. Wasn't worried at first because it looked like it was going to pass us by. It looked like it was going to be further west than it was, and all of a sudden it starts coming east, comes across Jacksonville, and there were predictions that it might come and hit Savannah or Charleston. Both were spared. Not so much the northern part of South Carolina. And Congresswoman Nancy Mace was on talking about the damage that was done, but thank God we dodged a little bit of a bullet here when she was speaking on Fox News last week.
Sunday night in America, Hurricane Ian left a devastating wake in Puerto Rico, Florida, and South Carolina. The death toll is high, and this storm could wind up being among the costliest ever. South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace joins us now. Congresswoman Mace, thank you so much for joining us. The images from Puerto Rico and Florida are devastating. What's our coast, the coast of South Carolina, like?
Well, certainly Charleston dodged a bullet on Friday, but just north of here, between Charleston and Myrtle Beach, not so lucky. We had the highest storm surge since Hurricane Hugo, and
Welcome back to Sunday Night in America. Hurricane Ian left a devastating wake in Puerto Rico, Florida, and South Carolina. The death toll is high, and this storm could wind up being among the costliest ever. South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace joins us now. Congresswoman Mace, thank you so much for joining us. The images from Puerto Rico and Florida are devastating. What's our coast, the coast of South Carolina, like?
Well, certainly Charleston dodged a bullet on Friday, but just north of here, between Charleston and Myrtle Beach, not so lucky. We had the highest storm surge since Hurricane Hugo, and the images of Pawleys Island and Garden City and Myrtle Beach are devastating. And after flooding, sometimes comes fires, and Pawleys Island and Garden City had some similar fires. And we've got a little bit of time, days and weeks ahead to clean up and recover from Hurricane Ian. Just as a Category 1, the images were pretty devastating as well.
Congresswoman, one would think that giving aid to those impacted by natural disaster would be above politics, but I want you to listen to the Vice President, and then I'm going to get you to respond on the other side.
Our lowest income communities and our communities of color that are most impacted by these extreme conditions and impacted by issues that are not of their own making. And so we have to address this in a way that is about giving resources based on equity.
Yeah, I actually listened to the entire clip. She also prioritized women, Congresswoman, as getting aid before others. I cannot speak to California. I don't know what happens there. I can tell you in South Carolina, frequently women actually live with men. So how in the world do you prioritize giving a woman in Pawleys Island hurricane relief, but not a man if they live in the same house? I was dumbfounded by what she said.
Well, it's incredibly, it's literally the definition of discrimination. Hurricanes don't see color. Hurricanes don't see political affiliation. Hurricanes don't see gender. All they see is destruction along the coast where they hit. And it is incredibly racist. Can you imagine someone saying the exact opposite, that only whites and men should get hurricane resources first? I mean, that's crazy town. And the fact that the Vice President of the United States is making those kinds of comments shows a lack of leadership. Everyone, regardless of the color of their skin, their gender, their orientation, where they live, their zip code, should have access to hurricane funding and resources and cleanup, and that's what should happen in this country. We shouldn't see it through the lens of color like the Vice President does.
Yeah, I mean, how about we just do it based on need? I mean, whoever needs it the most, do that first. All right, let me ask you about aid. Is there sufficient aid already budgeted to FEMA and elsewhere to cover the losses, or will Congress need to appropriate more for U.S. states and territories?
I can't imagine that we won't have to appropriate more for the states and territories that have been the most affected. If you look at Florida alone, we're talking about the most expensive disaster in history in the state of Florida, billions of dollars. And yet, when we voted for the continuing resolution on Friday, we sent billions of dollars overseas rather than having it here at home for those who need it the most to recover from this disaster. And so I can't imagine we won't need more funding than what's already been appropriated for natural disasters, looking at the devastation in Puerto Rico and Florida and even along the coast of South Carolina. And I want to take a moment and thank Governor Ron DeSantis. I want to thank Governor Henry McMaster, those who've been on the front lines leading their states through this crisis, through enormous challenges. They've both done a great job.
And I'll also add my old colleague Pedro Pierluisi, who is the governor of Puerto Rico. I cannot imagine having an island, a state devastated the way Florida. And of course, we lived through Hugo. That may have been before your time, but I lived through Hugo. So my wife and I were just in Pawleys Island about 2 weeks ago. It is an absolutely gorgeous part of the world, and our hearts are broken over the images that we see. And good luck to you as you make sure the people get what they need.
That's, of course, Trey Gowdy from Sunday Night in America from Sunday before last, and a lot of updates since then. The resilience, once again, of these people that we see, Brittany, is just amazing. And Pawleys Island is one of those little jewels that's just about 20 miles south of Myrtle Beach, and they have marvelous seafood restaurants. And there is another beautiful place. I haven't seen the devastation of what it was done, but there is a great tourist spot right there very near Pawleys Island called Brook Green Gardens. That is one of the most beautiful places that you could ever imagine. And it's an old plantation. I'm sorry if that offends anybody, but it's an old plantation where they used to grow indigo and rice, and they had, and it's hundreds of acres of beautiful, pristine land. And the people who lived there were sculptors. The lady, one of the ladies was a sculptor. There are all sorts of statues and fountains around this place that is unbelievable. And they have something called Night of 1,000 Candles during Christmas. And you go there, and it's all lit up. The lights they've got lights all wrapped around those beautiful oak trees and things of that nature. And they do something at Easter as well. They have all sorts of great activities for the kids. In fact, a few years ago when that big hurricane hit Florida, they've got down in Florida, they've got one of those parks that's got these real life-size dinosaurs, mechanical dinosaurs. They actually moved them up to Brook Green Gardens while that place was being renovated. And we took our grandkids up there, and they were just absolutely flabbergasted.
Oh, that's so fun.
It was so much fun, and they just have all sorts of this. So I highly recommend on the way to Myrtle Beach somewhere. It's certainly worth a stop at Brook Green Gardens for a few hours to see that gorgeous place. I hope everything was okay there too.
I hope so too. I actually, plantations, I'm from the West, as most of you know. Plantations are just such an awe to people from the West Coast because we don't have anything like that. But these houses are beautiful, and the acreage that comes with them, and just what people have also, done with a lot of the land, and they've planted gardens, and just it's amazing and beautiful. So if you get the opportunity to check out a plantation, you definitely should.
Yeah, to see these statues and to see all the preservation that goes on, and they do these boat tours where they take you down, where they show you where the indigo and the rice was grown and other crops that they had that made the South rich at the time, and the great economy that it formed for the South, growing cotton or whatever. Once upon a time they called it king cotton, but rice was also a biggie, and so was indigo.
That's amazing, Bill. See, and all the things that you learn when you go to these places, it's just you can't beat it. Get off the iPads. Head on out to some of these plantations and some of these historic places.
Right,
you learn
here,
so much.
Those of you in Savannah, you probably, if you stopped a tourist, you'd have a better chance of knowing where Juliette Lowe's house is than if you stopped a Savannian and asked them. Go on these carriage tours. Learn about, be a tourist in your own hometown. I'm really in favor of it. Wormslow Plantation.
Oh, it's beautiful.
One of the most gorgeous and most photographed spots. It's got that long causeway that goes into it, or just a little. It's not paved. It's a dirt road,
and it's breathtaking.
With the oaks as a kind of a cathedral of oaks. As you drive through, it is really, really breathtaking, and the plantation, the people who live there keep this place in just pristine condition, and it is a wonderful place to visit. So, and it's right here in Savannah. All sorts of great places to go to and to visit, whether it's Fort Pulaski or nearby in Richmond Hill, where they have Fort McAllister. And others, and they have these wonderful. Sometimes you get off the beaten path sometimes on July 4th because they do fireworks displays at some of these places too, and you don't have to fight as big a crowd as if you go downtown or out at Tybee to the beach where you can get where the traffic is just horrendous.
Yes, well, in Wormslow, it's probably the closest you'll get to feeling like you're hiking. I'm from the mountains, so that is one of my favorite places to go. You can take your dog. One of the things I do love about Savannah, I can take my dog almost anywhere. And it's wonderful.
And we've got these great programs here. If you're interested in marine biology, Savannah State University has a great program here. And we have an aquarium out at Skidaway Island. Now, don't think of it like the Georgia Aquarium. You're not going to see sharks and whales and things of that nature. But it is a very, very nice aquarium that shows you the marine life that exists right here in the Lowcountry and the Coastal Empire.
And we have a lot of it.
We do. All right, coming up next.
We're going to be seeing that tackle, and it will make your day.
Yes, sirree. A protester got exactly what he deserved at a football game recently. We'll show it to you. Coming up next.
Wasteful Washington spending is killing us with inflation and sky-high prices on groceries and gas. Senator Raphael Warnock voted to allow hundreds of millions of dollars of COVID relief funds to be squandered on a luxury resort in Florida, a New Jersey soccer stadium, a ski area in Iowa. Tell Senator Warnock to start voting against reckless spending to stop inflation. Georgia families need cheaper gas and food, not frivolous luxuries in other states.
People told me politics is dirty. They're right. My opponents launched a dirty attack ad. They dug up an old video and took it out of context. My opponents think they're hurting me, but I'm glad they did this ad because it gives me an opportunity to end the stigma around mental health. Here's the truth. My ex-wife Cindy and I are good friends, along with her husband and my wife. And I am grateful for all the support Cindy gave me during the hardest time of my life. I came forward back then in an effort to save lives and to help people who were struggling. We need to end the stigma around mental health. Let me say this to anyone watching, all the veterans and people who are suffering. Your life has value. There is hope, and you're not alone. I would rather listen to a friend talk about his struggles than to go to their funeral. That's why I wrote my book about my life. But my opponents, they don't care about the truth. The fact is, Senator Warnock can't talk about his accomplishments. He's failed Georgia, so he and his friends will lie and deceive. We're going to fight back with the truth, but I need your help. I'm asking everyone to go to teamherschel.com and help me fight back with the truth. God bless. Hi, this is Herschel Walker. I want to endorse Bruce Thompson as our new labor commissioner because he's going to do the best job you've ever seen for the great state of Georgia.
Listen, I'm standing here with the great Herschel Walker. We all know what's happened in our U.S. Senate. It's time for a change, and I 100% endorse Herschel Walker to represent Georgia and the United States as we take back our country for the people of Georgia and for the United States.
God bless.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Going down the home stretch here for this Monday morning, 10th day of October. And last Sunday on during the NFL, I don't follow them much anymore because they've gotten too woke for me. But I tell you, you got to hand it to one of the Rams players, Bobby Wendell, Bobby Wagner, that is.
Wagner, yep.
Yeah, it was.
And McKenzie. We're forgetting the second person that also tackled.
Yeah.
McKenzie.
It was really good. There was somebody who didn't have any business being there. A protester goes out on the field. I thought maybe some code stink. But it turns out he was protesting something. An animal rights activist goes out on the field and gets exactly what he deserves.
I think we have that clip now. Teamwork makes the dream work.
He's still going. Here he comes. Bobby Wagner laying out this animal rights activist running onto the field.
With the help of McKenzie.
Yeah, so there you go. He got exactly what he deserved. And as what he did for his animal rights cause.
Well, I think a lot of people were like, is this a gender reveal party? Like, what's happening? Like, people were so confused because it's not like you knew what he was doing until after the fact. Mm-hmm. So, I mean.
Popping pink smoke.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would have thought, oh, he's having a girl, right?
Yeah.
Very exciting news. Mm-hmm. That's not what happened. He was protesting people eating meat, which I don't know about you, Bill, but I would assume that people at football games are definitely a bunch of meat eaters.
Yeah. They sell lots and lots of hot dogs and hamburgers at the concession stands there, and maybe even some they set up here. I know they do at Grayson Stadium here in Savannah. You've got a guy that sets up independently from the regular concessions that make great steak sandwiches and all sorts of good stuff for you, and sausages and sausage dogs and all that's all the wonderful taste of the sunny South. And it is so much fun to go to the ball. And I don't know what it is. I don't know why hot dogs taste better at the ballpark. Popcorn tastes better at the theater. Whatever it is. But yeah. And by the way, if God didn't want us to eat meat, he wouldn't have had animals made out of it. Or he would have given us different teeth. We're carnivores.
We
have teeth that are designed for tearing and chewing.
And I will say, grew up with a lot of cattle in my life. We did our own butchering, and I was eating organic before it was cool. So. there's that.
There you go. And
But I will say, you know, I would think that more of the meat would be at a tailgate right before.
Mhm.
I mean, people are barbecuing, they're having a great time.
Sure.
So it's interesting that he decided that instead of going after the tailgaters, he would go on the field, which, you know, he was actually released very quickly from the police as well, which I thought was
what
interesting.
a surprise.
I know.
But the thing is, he knew that he was going to get more publicity. If you're out there with the tailgaters, maybe some of the local TV crews might get you, but you're not going to be on national television with millions of people watching. So that, I guess, that was supposed to be his contribution, or maybe it's her. I don't know what pronoun he actually goes by.
You know, they didn't list that in the article, so
They
I'm not sure
didn't.
either. So
Yeah.
shame on the news media. I mean, not living up to their own standards.
But good on Bobby Wagner and those guys coming off the bench and leveling this guy, got exactly what he deserved.
I think that this is like a very uniting thing, Bill. I think most people were excited for the Rams when they did this. So I mean,
exactly.
it's not likely that you get both teams to agree.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah,
So
so-
there you have it.
Thank you to the Rams for some lovely entertainment and also making sure that this guy got what he deserved and he was taken by that security guard, which
Yeah.
I think was very appropriate. I wish they would have got him before he got on field, but I mean, it was interesting to watch, Bill.
Yeah, yeah. You've seen it happen before, but this was a classic.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think it's interesting that a lot of people actually don't watch sports anymore, Bill. I know a lot of people that have
I
just
can
said, you know what,
imagine why.
it's just too much. And yet they've lost a lot of ratings and yet still they have not come around to the fact that they just need to stay out of this wokeness. And I heard it called woke supremacy, which I thought was very good verbiage coming from the right, which we are not very good at usually. So
Sports is supposed to be a release.
it's supposed to be fun, Bill.
Yeah. Supposed
Enjoy
to be fun going there, and you can do all the protesting off the field that you want to. And when I was doing a morning radio show here, I was told I could say anything I wanted to on the air. That was what I was paid for, was to give my political opinion, and it was a commentary show. It was that's the purpose of it. You knew what you were getting when you tuned in. But they told me once I walked out of the studio and was mingled with the rest of the staff, politics was off the table. Now, if you want to engage a one-on-one, privately at the water fountain or wherever at the canteen, that's fine. But as far as running out and expressing your political opinion where everybody can hear it in the office setting, not allowed.
What I think is interesting, Bill, is that the things that I've experienced is that people just assume that you agree with them if they're on the left. So they just start expressing how they feel about things. It becomes very awkward for a conservative to have some of these conversations, Bill, because number one, I'm not about to get in an argument with someone. It's just, I'm not going to put myself in danger that way, especially because you don't know how far left people are typically or how far they're willing to go. But they just start a conversation with you like you're already on their side or you already agree with them, which I think it's just interesting that that's how they think. And I guess the media has definitely given the impression that everyone is with them.
That was the great, if one of the reasons that I had a job in radio was because of Rush Limbaugh. He saved AM radio. And his philosophy was, when he started his show in Sacramento, California, 30 years ago, he said he listened to other radio shows and he noticed that everybody always had guests and they were talking to this back and forth. He said, I don't want to sound like everybody else. I want to be different. I want to not know what other people think. I want to talk about what I think. And for the first time in the media, people were hearing, because there were only 3 networks at the time. The broadcast industry had a great monopoly on news. And as David Brinkley once said, news is what we say it is.
I think we see that every day still, Bill.
And so there was, and if you watched the NBC News, CBS News, and ABC News back to back, they were monotonous in their similarity, and what stories they covered, how they covered the story, and the political bent that they had on the story, even though it was cleverly, cloaked in metaphors or something else. And people got to, and that was the thinking. And when Rush started expressing these ultra right-wing opinions about how things were wrong and that they were being duped by the other media, people started saying, yes. Somebody's finally saying what I feel. I think it's crazy to start busing kids halfway across town just to start up for some racial balance crap.
Well, I also think that Rush was really great in that way, and he gave people a voice that didn't have one. Mm-hmm. And I think the other thing that...
And it was entertaining.
Yes, he was. Yeah. Definitely was. But I think we also see that now, Bill, is that with COVID and what kind of happened is that people felt isolated. They felt like no one agreed with them, no matter what was happening, because the media was so hell-bent on making sure that they were aligned on a lot of the narratives that they were telling us.
Mm-hmm. The woke issues.
Mm-hmm. And we still see that today, but I think 2020, because of the isolation, made it so people weren't talking to other people. Mm-hmm. And I think it made people almost worse and more radical because of that. And now we're starting to come out of it, and we see a lot more hateful people than we've ever seen, or they're just more willing to act on that.
And I think that's happened with social media, that because of the anonymity people they feel like they can just say anything. They can go for the most hideous and despicable remarks about somebody or some cause or something, or how they feel about a particular political bent, and because they think that way. That's the way they think. So they figured everybody is doing it. They can't figure out why. It was going back to Rush. I remember there was this young girl at one of the Hildebeest rallies. Hillary was talking, and she was talking, and it was the same old song about how expensive college education was. And there was this young girl who said, she's $5,000 in debt. Now we're talking 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
$5,000 in debt. And Hillary is trying to console her. Oh, I know it's so expensive, and we're going to do something about it when I'm elected. She runs a foundation that was raking in hundreds of millions of dollars. Interesting that that dried up almost to a trickle when she didn't win the election for president, but that's another story. But Rush Limbaugh started talking about it on his radio show, and he got in touch with that young lady, and he gave her the $5,000 that she needed. He said, the Hildebeest could have done that, but that's not the way they think. They think that giving other people, that they're great at giving away other people's money. When it comes to giving theirs, John Stossel did this but back in the old days of 2020 on ABC, and he did a charitable type thing. He had a charity set up to collect money for March of Dimes. Let's say it was March of Dimes in Kansas City, and he had one done in San Francisco. And this is when you could still walk on the street without stepping in human feces or on a needle or something, and didn't have a bunch of tents set up. But the very affluent part of San Francisco, the people coming by to make donations there was about a tenth of what it was in Kansas City, that had half of the median income and so on and so forth. So it's interesting that these elites always want to give away somebody else's money, but not their own.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely the way that it works.
Mm-hmm.
This is good for you, but I mean, rules don't apply to me. I believe that that's kind of their philosophy.
No.
So, we continue to see this in the media, and we'll continue to.
Didn't we see it at Martha's Vineyard recently?
Yeah, there was someone that talked about that at the event we went to last week, and it was so funny because they're like, those people are hypocrites. Look what they did. Mm-hmm. They sent him to the Republicans to take care of him.
We'll talk about more tomorrow on the Tuesday edition. Have a great day. This is Get Real America.
Follow us on YouTube, Vimeo, GRAnewsmedia.com, and you can also catch us on Spotify and Apple or wherever you get your podcasts.
Send up a flare. Tell everybody.